Okay, so earlier we saw the template driven forms, right? So here basically we have two types of forms, two ways we can handle forms in Angular. One is using the template driven approach and the second one is using the reactive approach, right? So this one we already saw. So the first one we have to import forms module to work on the first approach, the template driven approach. In order to work on the React Forms module, then you have to import the Reactive Forms module here. Okay, that is the difference. That's the main thing you have to do before working on either of these modules. Okay, so now coming back to Reactive Forms. So now we have to import this Reactive Forms module in your app module or any other feature module. Then only you can work on reactive forms module, because reactive forms module will offer us some some support, like some classes or some directives in order to work on the reactive forms, something like form group and form controls, and there are some directives. We have form control name and validation related things, right? So it will offer those things from the reactive forms modules. That's the reason we have to import reactive forms module into the project. Now, so how can we create a reactive form? Okay, what is the difference between the template driven and reactive forms, right? So in order to use the template driven forms, you must use the ng model, right? So if we go here and so in order to bind this input element with some element, some field in the component class, then we have to use the ng model, right? Ng model directive. But whereas in the case of reactive modules, we don't need to do that. Okay, we should not use ng model. So here what we can do is we can basically create a an object or create a reference of form group. Okay, this form group comes from our reactive module. Okay, so we have to create a class variable of type form group, and here either in ng on init or constructor, we have to build that form. Okay, so we have to basically provide configuration for that form, and now we have to take this variable and we have to initialize it with the form configuration. Okay, so now what I'm telling with this is I'm telling, okay, create a new form group object. Okay, create a form group object here using the new keyword, and then in this object, okay, this basically takes an object. Form group takes an object. So that object will have couple of things, right? So it will have key value pairs. Okay, this is key and this is value. So why we are calling this form group, right? So form group. So basically it will have group of these form control elements. Okay, form control is a single field in the UI. So name is a text box, right? So text box is a single field in the UI. So that is a single text box or single input element, whatever it is, select statement or the radio buttons, anything, right? So that is basically called a form control. So we have to create a new object for that form control, and then we have to either provide null or we can basically have some data also. We can provide some data also, like default data you want to show in that form, or if you want to add some validations. So those things you can basically provide it here. So that one we can see later. This is one approach, okay? But there is another easy approach also. In order to build or create a reactive form, we can basically uh, inject form builder. Okay, we have to inject a form builder service, and this service again is again from our React form module, right? So we have to inject this service, and again, and there's no difference between this and this, right? So we have to basically assign this contact form using assign this value, right? The form group value. So what I'm doing, I'm taking a reference of this class, service class, and then I'm calling a group method. So okay, group method, and inside that again I'm providing an object just like this one. Okay, and then what I'm doing, I'm again having key value pairs. Okay, this is key and this is value, and key is same. In place of value, we are providing an array. Okay, it's an array, but here we provided new form control. Here it is an array. Okay, so in this array, first value is uh, always the value of this field. Okay, so if you provide some data here in the first one, then it will be a default value for your form element. And second parameter is the validations. Okay, the validators. So if you want to make a field mandatory, then what you have to do, you can call this validators dot required. Okay, if you want to make a field must have a email validation, then what you can do, validators dot email. Okay, then this field must be an email. Okay, it will check validation for this field whether it is an email or not. Okay, so the same way we can define an entire forms like this, entire form like this, form elements like this. Okay, so compared to this one is, this syntax is a bit easier. Okay, because we are not using this object creation. So we are just using an array, and inside that array, first is always associated with the value of this element, and second element must be associated with the validations of that respective element. Okay, so in the UI, what we have to do? Okay, in the view, what we have to do? This is from the component class side, and in the UI we have to do a couple of things. First thing is we have to remove that ng model from the template driven approach. So instead that we have to use the form control name. Okay, the form control name. So the form control name must have a variable name. Okay, must match one of these fields. Okay, so here I have a name, and that's the reason this form control is name is a name field. The same way, second one is an email. Okay, so the second one is email. Okay, and then third one is subject, and fourth one is message. So basically, everywhere for every field we have to provide this form control name directive, and you have to assign a variable or like field value, field key, and that key must match from one of these. Otherwise, it will throw error that field is not found. And apart from this configuration, the another thing we have to do is we have to bind the entire form. Okay, entire form. That means the form element. We have to bind the entire form to the variable you created here. Okay, contact form. Okay, so this is tightly binding, right? So basically, this contact form group variable is bound to the form, entire form using the form group directive, and each field is bound using form control name. Okay, each field is bound to all these fields using the form control name. Okay, now this bound to the entire form object, and each single thing is mapped to the single entry in this configuration. Okay, in this form configuration. So once this is done, then your reactive form setup is done. Okay. So the next step is how to set default values in the reactive forms. Okay. So as I was saying, this is directly associated with the value of that field, right? So in order to change default value, what you have to do is you can basically put anything. Okay. If it is number, then put number here. If it is email, you can put email inside here. If it is some text value, you can put some text value like this in the single quotes. And then second parameter must be your validation, right? So once you do this, this value, once form is loaded in the UI, this value is by default added to that input element. Okay. And how can you add validations, right? So validates are how to add validations. So by using the same syntax, either using these form controls or using that array, So the first one is always associated with the value of that field, and second one must be validations, right? So here I'm telling the name field is mandatory. Okay, it's a required field. Okay, without that field, you cannot submit that form. The same way, email also. This must be an email format, and it should match this format. Okay, and third one is subject field. So subject field is it must have at least 10 characters, then only this field is valid, and then message must be required. Okay, so then how can we show errors in the UI? So in the UI, there is no difference. Okay, this one is same, and even the form elements also same. Only thing is this one added now newly. So what this will do is we'll use the contact form. Okay, this reference here dot get name. Okay, name means again this form control name. Okay, so in this contact form, get me the name element and check whether it is invalid. Okay, so how it will check whether it is invalid? Whatever validations you added here, it will check this field against these validations, the second parameter validation. If any single thing is failed, okay, we can provide multiple also, right? So multiple you can provide like this comma separated. Okay, if any of these validations fail, then that time this field become invalid. Okay, in our case, if it is not provided, then this will become invalid. So this entire thing will become true. And if that form is touched, then only show this error message. Even though if there is a error message, when it is touched, then only show this error. Okay, so that's the reason we are checking whether it's invalid and whether it is touched. In case of this both are true, then we show the message. Okay, please enter valid course name. Same way for email also, if it is invalid and if it is touched, then only show please enter valid email. Okay. Same way you can add the same validation for subject also. If it is min length is less than 10 characters, then we can basically show please enter subject more than 10 characters. Okay, so these are the way we can add validations. Okay, so compared to the template driven approach, this is much easier because we don't have to do much here. So we have to basically bind an object. Okay, basically you have to create a form configuration in the TypeScript class or the component, and in the form you can have these things like form control name, and then this one, then your form is set. In order to show error messages, this is what you have to follow. Okay, now the advantage of having this form is whenever you submit, right? So whenever you submit, you can call this method submit method. Then I can get that reference because that reference is from the TypeScript class itself. Okay, I can get the contact form. I can call the valid method, not method. This is a valid field. Okay, if the entire form, if there is no single error message, then this will become true. If there is any single error message in entire form, then this will become false. Okay, and in case if this returns true, I'm just printing the value here. But normal cases, we send this data back to the API. Okay, to save data from in the database or somewhere else. And then if this is false, you can show some error message in the UI saying that form is not valid. Can you please check and correct it? Okay, so we can achieve this one. And how to listen to events, right? So in template driven approach, we don't have any this listening features, right? So I told that ReactiveForms is basically imported from borrowed from the reactive programming approach, right? So basically if it is reactive means it is event based, right? So if any event happens, then there will be a callback, and that callback will be called every time the event happens. So same way, we can listen to, or we can subscribe to the observable with the value changes observable of the ng form group. Okay, so here we have value changes observable, and anytime a user enter a single character, or use selects a drop down, or user basically changes the radio button selection, then immediately this will be called. Okay, because we subscribe to it, so this will be called. This method will be called as many times as you type the characters in the entire form. Okay, wherever you type in any field, then this method will be called. If you want to check events on only single element, then what you can do is you can get that contact form object, and you can get a specific element using the form control name. Okay, so for first form control, first input field, we have form control name as name, right? So that's the reason. Get me name element, input element from the contact form, and if that value changes every time, then call this one. Okay, if that name value changes, if your user enters or removes or anything happens, so every single change, every single character change will basically trigger the value changes event, and the value changes subscriber observable will call this subscriber, and it will pass the value every time. Let's say user started typing hello, and for each character H, and then HE, and then HEL, and then HELL, and then HELLO, right? So almost 5 times this method will be called, because we subscribe to the events on that specific field. Okay, and then how to basically disable a submit button, right? So using this template, using this reactive approach, it is very easy. Okay, because we already have the form is valid or not flag, right? So earlier we saw whether a form is valid or not. Here we saw the form is valid or not. Same way, we have a disabled directive, and if we provide true here, then this entire button will become disabled. If we provide false here, then this will become um, active. I mean, it's not disabled. So in order to do that, what we have to do is check this field ng form dot value. If it is true, then don't disable that. Okay. If it is false, then disable this form. So until unless the entire form is valid, the submit button is disabled. Okay, with single piece of code, with this single key value pair approach, then we are basically achieving when to disable a button and when to enable a button without doing much coding. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay. And let me cover modules as well, and then tomorrow we'll do React forms and modules hands-on. Okay, practice. Okay, so what is a module, right? So module is basically a group of components, directives, or uh, any of these Angular building blocks, right? Services and component directives, pipes, all these things you can basically put together and create a module out of it. Okay, so whenever you create a Angular application, by default app module is created, but that doesn't mean we have to use that app module for our entire application. Okay, sometimes as we see couple of examples, right? Mostly we saw the student example. So where college application will be split into multiple parts, where the student courses, student marks, and student related anything, right? Events basically move to one place or one section, and faculty related information will be moved to another section, and departments related data will move to the third section, right? So in these three sections, you can basically split that entire application. So now, instead of calling that sections, we can call modules, okay? Because student module will have student related components and student related services, and it will call student related APIs in the backend. And that's how you can basically can group student related features into student module, and same way faculty related features into faculty module, and department related or administration related features into admin module. So now what is the advantage of splitting the application, right? So as your application started growing, over time, right? So basically, if you have all these features or modules separately, then it will be very easy to maintain entire application. And if you want to do some changes in let's say student module, then you will be touching only student module. You will not be touching other two modules. So this is where you can modularize your entire application, and then also it will improve the performance of the application, because most of the times, let's say if a student logs into the application, then student needs to work on only student modules, so, right? So it doesn't have access to faculty module and admin module. So when you have this modularized architecture, when student logs into the application, only the student module will be, or module file will be downloaded to the browser, and it will execute. So it will not download code related to your faculty module and code related to our administrator module. Okay, that's the reason it will increase the speed of your application, because we are not downloading unnecessarily all the modules for every kind of user. Okay. So how can we basically uh, create a module, right? So just before that, we'll see how many types of modules we have. We have two types. One is root module, another one is feature module. So what is root module? Root module is basically our app module. Okay, this is basically created by default when you create an Angular application. And what is a feature module? Feature module is basically a user created module or custom module. Okay, it will have code related to your custom application. But whereas the root module, it is a default module comes when you create an Angular application. Yeah. So here I explain with an example, right? So we have student module, faculty module, subjects module, admin module, and departments module. So you can split the entire application into all these 5 modules. And when the student logs in, we use student works on only student module, so we don't download all these modules. When admin logs into the system, we download only this module, and we don't have to download all these modules. So that way we can basically reduce the application uh, size or application footprint in your browser. So how can you create a feature module? So the simple thing is, you can basically execute this command ng g for generate module, and you can give a feature module. Okay, for example, ng g module items. Okay. So why we are adding this routing, right? So let's say your feature module also has a routing configuration. Then you can put this hyphen routing. This hyphen routing will create a root module file. Okay, it will create a root file. So if you don't give this one, it will not create the root file. It will create only single feature module file, just like app module file. It will create an empty feature module file. Okay, so this is how you can create a feature module. Okay, so I was talking about loading only student module or loading only faculty module when faculty logs in, loading only admin module when admin user logs in, right? So how can we achieve that? Okay, so the only way to achieve that is using this specific syntax. Okay, when you're defining routes in your main routing file, okay, what is main routing file? main routing file is your application routing file, and this is the main routing file. Okay, app routing module.ts. So inside that, when you are defining these routes, what you can do is you can basically use this syntax. Okay, the path is basically what we already saw. Okay, this one is new. Okay, load children is new. So load children and import that module using this arrow function. Okay, import that module using the arrow function, and once you add this syntax here, then that specific module will be built separately, and a separate file will be created for that module. Okay, so now we don't have to do anything else. All right, so only this thing we have to do to make a module lazy module. Okay, lazy module means only when it is accessed, only when student is accessing student related features, only that time we go to server, and browser go to server and fetches that single file which is built only for student, and then it will try to deploy in the UI, or it will try to render in the UI, that means browser. Okay, so and in your lazy loaded modules, you can create a routing file again, and in that you can provide your feature level, or like module level routes. Okay, so here we have items as a root module path, and here in the child you can basically have subpaths. Okay, that will become part of this path. Okay, items slash and whatever path you provided inside the items routing module. Okay, so this is how you can basically separate main features, or main sections in your application into separate modules. Okay, you can split into separate modules, and each module will have a parent path, and then inside child module, then you can have many child routes or child paths. Okay, so it will be appended to this path every time you do some navigation in that module. So let's see how to create a shared module, and where we can use this shared module. Okay, so shared module is a generic module. Okay, you can create a shared module using the same uh, ng command, and once it is created, basically where we use shared modules, right? Let's say when you work on an application, few things like the header, footer, and then and some other directives and some other pipes, right? Common pipes like currency pipe, and if you are writing some filter pipe, then those cases you have to reuse them, right, across your application. So in that cases you can create a shared module, and in that shared module you can create all these common reusable components, or reusable services, and reusable pipes, and anything, right? So you can create, and then you can put it in that module. Okay, either in the declaration section or the export section, you can put all those things. The for services you can use the providers, right? So you can put it here in this module, and then let's say your other feature module or app module needs that shared module, right? So what you can do is you can basically import that into your app module. Okay, if you want to use that common components defined in the shared module in your app module, what you can do is you can basically in the import section you can uh, uh, use the shared module name to import into your app module, just like how we are importing common module, browser module, routing module, right? Just import your shared module, and then all the things you define or created in this will be available inside app module to use. Okay, but before that we have to do one thing. Okay, how can we tell Angular that this module is basically exporting certain components or reusable components? So in that case, what you can do is, so once this module shared module is created, it will look like this. Okay, declarations is empty, and your import will have the common module, because common module will have ng if, ng for, and all those things, right? So in, let's say if you have any components, they might use this ng if ng else, right? So that's the reason we have to use common module here. And once that is done, let's create a component called notification. Okay. So, and create another service called notification service. Now what you can do is, once you created, Angular will update this declaration section with the notification component, because we created it here. And once it is created in the declaration section, then in the export section, we have to add which components from the shared module you want export to the other modules, or to make it available for other modules, right? So it can have, a shared module can have 100 declarations, but I want only couple of components to be exposed outside. So in that case, only those couple of components you can put it here in the export section, so that this will be available across your other modules. Okay, now here I created notification component, and now I imported shared module here, and in the app module, and now I go to app component, and in the app component, what I'm doing, I'm just using the app notification directly. Okay, this is basically coming from the shared module. Okay, we don't have the notification component here in the app module, right? So we have only app component, nothing else. But still we are able to use app notification. From where we are using that? From shared module, we are basically able to use this app notification. So wherever you need this app notification in any other modules also, just go and import this module, and then this component will be available in those modules also. Okay, and also we created a service, right? So we created a notification service here. So how can I use this notification service in app module? Whenever you create a any service, right? Basically, the provider in is root. Okay, this means that application is that service is basically available across the application. Okay, the service is available across the application. So that does mean this service is available across all your modules. So shared module is different, app module is different, but because I have provider in as root, then I will be able to use that service directly inside my app component. Okay, this is my app component, and here I'm able to use the entitlement service, and I'm able to use the notification service. Okay, both we created it here. Okay, here we created entitlement service, we created a notification service. So now we are able to inject both services into my app component. Okay, but these are not part of the app component. These two are coming from the shared module. Okay, this is how you can basically categorize modules. You can create a shared module, you can create a student module, you can create a faculty module, and wherever you need the exported component from those services, right? Can basically use this syntax. You have to import it to your import section of your module, and then all the exported, okay, exported, remember exported. So all the exported components you can use in all the declarations of the app module or any other module for that matter. In the app component, all my exported components or services will be available. Okay. So apart from that, how can we define routes for these modules, right? So go to your main routing file, that is app routing module, and then in the routes file, just like you use the normal routes, right? So just use this path symbol or like path property, and instead of component, we should have load children. Load children means we are telling Angular that load this module. Okay. So now I have three modules: module 1, module 2, and module 3 here. So we are using, for first module, we are using path as module 1, and for second 2, and third module 3. And this will import module 1, this will import module 2, this will import module 3. Okay. And now we have to use again like same, right? So router module dot for root, and I'm basically passing all these routes to the router module. Okay, just like how we do for normal component routing. So now what will happen when I go to module 1 path in the browser, it will download this module. When I go to module 2 path, it will download this one. If I go to module 3 path in the browser, it will download module 3 dynamically. Okay, when I explicitly go to that path, then only that module will be downloaded. Otherwise, other modules will not be downloaded. Okay, if I go to this path, then these two modules will not be downloaded. Only this module will be downloaded to my browser. Okay, that we can see tomorrow in the examples. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, so yeah, tomorrow we'll execute all this example for reactive forms and modules. Okay.